So I'm put this in my mouth, and this is going to wrap around both sides
How are you
gums.
going to rinse that?
I don't know.
All right, let's see it. This is going to be good.
I don't know. I couldn't stop it. Okay.
Holy
I know what
shit.
you're thinking.
You definitely bought that on Pornhub.
Hello, friends and family. Welcome to the Random Show. I am here in my studio with Tim Ferriss. Tim, you're here in my house.
I know. It's so nice.
I shouldn't say that my studio is my house. We can still say that. It's fine. But
It's in your back cave.
I'm glad you're here, brother. It's good to see you in person.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I'm really, really thrilled that it worked out. And what better way to get off of my podcast sabbatical than with saying hi to my good friend Kevin.
How did that feel, by the way?
So the sabbatical, first time in 10 years
Yeah.
that I've taken a break from the podcast. And it's been 4 months, roughly, of sharing a lot of the greatest hits. And it's been a combination of feeling fantastic. And I've been working on other projects that are really energy in for me. My first new book in the 7 years that I've been working on.
That's not a sabbatical, by the way, but
Well, usually, though, in fairness, the word sabbatical is typically used in academic circles.
Jesus,
and
here
when
we
they
go.
take a break from teaching, they do other things, right?
Right.
They do other things. And I think you and I, if we're being honest, are both working dogs. Like, we can take breaks, but it's like you take a working dog, like a border collie, you stick it in your apartment in New York City and it doesn't run. And you're
Yeah.
like, why is it chewing the couch? It's
Right.
because it has to run. So for me, to do the deep work of books specifically is just a different shift, different gear than feeling the pressure of putting out a podcast once or twice a week.
do you think that idea of shifting between those two, like podcast and then book, podcast, book, if you had to do that,
Yeah.
it breaks up your train of thought too much or so much so that you wouldn't be able to have the best book that you like? Do you need that undivided time?
You need the undivided time.
Okay, because that
Yeah, and I'll make a recommendation or something that makes it very clear. There's an essay by Paul Graham, so co-founder of Y Combinator, famous for many different reasons, also a spectacular writer, very good painter also, I believe. But he wrote an essay called The Top Idea in Your Mind, or A Top Idea in Your Mind. And it talks about effectively attention as a currency and the importance of, there's a separate one, maker's schedule versus manager's schedule, something like that. But the importance of uninterrupted blocks of time, particularly if, for instance, you're dealing with a complex project. This is true of coding, for instance, also true of writing, where you're juggling like 27 balls in the air.
right.
And if you get distracted and you drop 4, you have to start over again. And you have to build that rhythm, and it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about the pressures of, or the prep for, even if I'm having fun, of a podcast,
Yeah.
it's basically robbing myself of, let's just call it 20, 30, 40, 50% of the subconscious cycles
Right.
that I could apply to the book, even when I'm not thinking about it.
Right. I mean, for something like this, obviously we're just bullshitting, but like I'd imagine a typical guest for you on the kind of research and due diligence side is like, is that a couple of days work for you in
It
terms
can
of
be
like
a couple
prep?
of days. In the case of some guests, it can be a few weeks.
Yeah.
If it's way outside of my normal areas
Oh,
of expertise.
interesting.
And even if we look at a few days, it's a lot of prep. It's a lot of thinking about the interview, even when I'm done prepping, which avenues I might take based on answers that go in a particular direction. So I take the craft of podcasting very seriously, although it's been a chance also for me, and I wanted to take this sabbatical not just to, say, work on the book, but to think about first 10 years have been great. If I continue to do this, which I would like to do, how do I keep it as exciting for me personally
Right.
as possible? And if I do that, can I differentiate it in a podcast
Yes.
ecosystem that is increasingly oversaturated?
Yes. This is the reason I just stopped doing podcasting.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't stop it, but I cut back to like one episode every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's because when I have a guest on, I totally get what you were saying, because I remember I hit you up. I had a dear friend that launched a new book, and you're like, hey, I'm not doing any new books. And when you look at that person, great book, I loved it. They did 10 podcasts, right? And they all talk about the same thing.
thing.
Right. So then you're just playing the like, okay, maybe I want Tim's version. Maybe I want, whoever else, top 10 podcaster out there.
Yeah. You're eating Kung Pao chicken no matter what.
Right.
Like, it's just like whose sauce is slightly different.
Exactly. And it doesn't feel as additive to the ecosystem to just do the same thing that's going around on the circuit.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me get your take.
Yeah.
And also for people listening, I would love your take. I mean, I'm doing a lot of reflection of my own, so I'm not just outsourcing this, but in terms of rules for myself moving forward, I've thought about a few things. One is to basically take a barbell approach where I'm interviewing people who effectively no one has ever heard of, right? So who knows? The popcorn king of Milwaukee or whatever, right? Some master who has not ever made the rounds.
Right.
Ideally, it's someone, for instance, who's never done a long-form interview, like Jocko Willink the first time he was on the podcast or whatever it might be. Or on the opposite, very far end, it's someone almost everyone would know, right? Like a Bezos or a fill in the blank, right? But very little in between because the podcasting circuit has largely become 20 or 30 podcasts at a time of book authors doing the modern equivalent of a radio satellite tour.
Right.
And I just don't particularly want to participate in that anymore.
Yeah. But with the Bezos, I'd imagine like you're not going to go like, hey, tell me about Q4 of last year at Amazon.
No, I'd want to
be like,
make it more
tell me about like how was your divorce, like, or like shit that like you could get into. Hopefully, that is uniquely that you haven't heard anywhere else.
And I'd want it to be evergreen. Right?
Yeah,
like I don't, I really don't want to, and this is to my economic detriment, right? But I don't want to chase the current controversy of the day. I don't want things that are going to expire in 2 months.
Right.
I want my back catalog to be as interesting to people as the newer episodes.
Yes.
And that's going to mean taking probably a pretty major financial haircut, but I'm totally fine with that at this point. Because also, you have to think about, say, if you're thinking about the economic side of things, like there's the short term and there's the long term, right? If I get so apathetic or bored that I stop doing the podcast, well, that's the end of the income period. Right. So if I ratchet it back 40%, let's just say in terms of volume, but I do it for longer over time, and my audience can tell that I'm really excited about the episodes that I'm putting out, which I, in general, have been.
Yeah.
Right? There are very few compromises I've made, but I can see the slippery slope of just taking whatever gets pitched to you by publicists for the latest and greatest book.
Yeah.
So these are all
I
considerations.
love that, man. I think that's a great approach. I'd much rather see the longevity of Tim and higher quality episodes than just banging them out every single week.
Totally. And I don't feel like I've made many compromises, but there have been a few where I'm like, I don't want to do this kind of interview again.
Yeah.
And I've also thought in terms of format of basically doing co-hosted catch-ups with friends. So for instance, I might have, and none of these people have agreed, so I don't want to, well, actually, I'm not even going to mention names, but you can imagine some of my closest friends who have been on the podcast who are very, very smart and good at asking questions. I catch up with them. They suggest a guest they think we could interview together.
That's fun.
And then I'm catching up with a close friend while we're interviewing someone.
That's cool.
I think that would be great. I think that'd be super additive to my life.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that transmits in the same way that I think a large reason, say, the All In podcast has become massively popular is because of that interplay. And it's fun. I always enjoy this type of banter.
Yeah.
And
we got a lot to cover
catching
today.
up. So yeah, why don't you hop in?
So Addison, are you around? We have my dear friend Addison, who lives here in LA, who is a part-time, semi-professional bartender, mixologist. Not really, but he does that for fun. And he also does an AI company part-time called pickstudio.ai, which just came out with a new model. And you know how these AI models are changing so fast, right? Mm-hmm. When I was first messing around with this with him like a while ago, it was pretty good. It was good. It was like I used it as a headshot for a couple of places, right? But you could still kind of like look at it. If you squinted, you'd be like, AI, right?
Yeah, uncanny valley. You'd be like, wait a second.
So they came out with a new model, and I wanted to show you. We'll see if Addison's going to make us some drinks as well. I want to show you a couple pictures of yourself. Dude, this is a brand new model.
Holy shit, that's insanity.
Is that insane?
And we'll put these up on YouTube and other places so people can see the images. That's terrifying.
Dude, how real does that look?
Looking good.
You're looking. This should be your new dating profile picture. Now that one, you're a little preppy there. With the cargo shorts.
I'm a little preppy, but this is like
the ocean looks nice.
What's crazy is the kind of full body dimension accuracy.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Yeah, he was saying that you can like use the prompt now to say like this shirt type or like
so
here's your Steve Jobs.
So looking at these photos, I would say even I would be like, wait a second. Did I take that photo? Did I ever take that photo? No, that's not me. That is terrifying.
I know.
It's terrifying.
It's awesome, though, at the same
It's
time.
awesome and terrifying. I mean, in short order, we're already seeing memes turned into videos.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's going to be the Wild West.
It
already is.
It's going to be crazy. Speaking of looking good, though.
You're looking great.
And I want to do your dating life update as well.
Oh, my.
But we need a drink first. Asan? Yeah, he's coming. Okay. Jesus. One job. 2 jobs, AI in this. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so.
Speaking of looking good, you want to show off your new tattoo?
Oh, yeah. I just got a little crane here. Jess Machete on Instagram. She's amazing, New York-based tattoo artist. She's done Bruce Willis, a bunch of other really famous kind of people in the past.
I was wondering why you had Bruce Willis on your forearm.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you choose that?
So you probably know this, but in Japanese lore, children's books and others, the crane is a symbol of, because of its length, that can span heaven and earth. And so it's used as a bridge for souls to transfer between heaven and earth. And I just like that lore. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. And I got the meditator done by her on the front of me as well. So
wow,
got both. But she's insanely talented.
Very talented. Yeah, beautiful artwork.
We'll link to her profile in the old show notes. So you were looking really good on Instagram, and you posted that you got a vampire facial done.
Yeah, vampire facial. Yeah, so I put up a photo which popped up on my phone. It was generated by the phone, and it had today, 8 years ago, and it was a photo of me from 8 years ago. And I realized, which I more or less hoped would be the case and really pushed for, which was like, all right, I lost my hair pretty early, and then I looked older than my friends, and I was like, I just need to make it like the next 10 years and train my ass off and watch my diet, and I think I'll kind of flat line or plateau in terms of how I look.
Right.
And so the photos made it look, I think, like I had largely not aged in 8 years.
It looked amazing.
It looked amazing. So I put up 8 years on the Romanian vampire protocol trademark, and then I put RVP in parentheses, will do wonders for your skin. And it was a total joke on my part.
Right.
Unbeknownst to me, though.
Well, you turned off comments, too.
I turned off comments. Yeah, there's a long story behind that we won't get into. But
the reason that was funny is because so many people
I didn't get any of the feedback.
Giving the feedback, there is a such thing as a vampire facial. And you were joking. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, shit, Tim does the vampire, too. I'm like, wow, he's been doing it for a long time. He's never told me about it, you know?
What is the vampire facial?
So about a month ago now, I was at the dermatologist, and you go in once a year and get all your warts and shit looked at to make sure you don't have a cancer. And I go in there, and they're like, hey, like, you want some good shit, like.
Now that I'm looking at your eyes, we were talking about like crow's feet and turning them back into crow knuckles. I don't see anything.
It looks good, right?
Yeah, you don't even have crow knuckles.
Thank you for the compliment.
You're welcome.
But I will tell you that, the options they have are all of the LA shit, which I don't want to do. Like, I don't want to get Botox all on my face and shit.
You don't want to be a lizard cat?
Lizard cat?
Walk among the lizard cat people?
Exactly. I mean, it just looks horrible. Because, you can tell.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't do that.
But I'm sure you could get by with it for a couple of years, and then you look like a plastic dude.
So now vampire, because they are taking out your blood, spinning it, creating something known as platelet-rich plasma.
Yes. And you've had that done before.
Yeah,
not the facial, though.
No.
So tell people why you did it.
Prior to the 4-Hour Body, or in the process of writing the 4-Hour Body, which is all about physical performance.
Yeah.
And modification and performance enhancement. That book was published in 2010, and at the time I was using PRP because it had been used at that time for certain types of joint degeneration or orthopedic issues related to joints.
Yes.
So I had interarticular joint injections in the elbows, shoulders.
That's not the one you got infected by, was it?
One of them was sadly a disaster.
Oh, boy.
And whenever you inject anything, there's a chance that you introduce pathogens through the skin. Now, what I did not realize at the time is that this particular clinic, who will remain unnamed, when they injected the elbow, they used the wrong injection site. And so they disinfected the surface level of the skin.
Right.
But there are so many layers to the skin, and the skin is so thick on the elbow that there was staph bacteria beneath that first disinfected area. The needle pushed that into the joint capsule.
Jesus.
And then within 48 hours, my elbow is the size of a volleyball.
Yes.
And I was chatting with a doctor, a friend of mine, who, this was probably 11 p.m. at night in San Francisco.
By the way, this is 12 years ago?
This is something like it, 12 years ago.
Remember I came and visited you at the hospital?
What was that? Oh, yeah, that's right. And
you squirted juice out of your arm?
Oh, that was gross. Yeah, so a few things happened. Number one is my very competent doctor friend said, touch your touch your elbow. Is it hot? And I
Yes.
said, yes. And she said, you need to go to the emergency room immediately. Here's the one you should go to. Tell them this. And I did. And a few hours later, they're removing copious amounts of just disgusting
Yeah, so I'm in the room.
monster fluid.
You hit me up and you're like, I'm in the emergency room or whatever. I've
Yeah.
got this infection or whatever. And I'm like, I should go check in on Tim. I go
Yep.
down there. And I want to say, didn't some of it squirt against the wall?
There was a syringe full of all this disgusting
Yeah, 'cause
juice.
they're
And so I
pulling it out.
squirted it at you like a turkey
That's
baster.
right. And I was like, you fucker. You're like, oh, Addison, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
This looks amazing.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Awesome.
what
what
is-
is it?
what is this?
Tequila martini.
Tequila martini.
martini.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, brother.
This is your tequila, too, that you invested in.
Oh, yeah. Lalo Tequila. Check it out.
Awesome.
Only alcohol brand I've ever invested in.
Thank you. So, yeah, you squirted staph infection at me, you fucker.
I did.
Which I'm like, looking back at that, I'm like, that was a pretty dick thing to do.
Yeah,
But
I
we
knew
were
I
laughing at the
wasn't
time.
going to get you in the eyes. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera you. But PRP,
Damn, this is a good drink.
it is a great drink.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So PRP, to be clear, number one, it's your own blood.
Yes.
Number two, it can be, in some instances, really, really effective for orthopedic issues. But there's quite a bit of published literature, so you can look it up.
I've
But I
heard-
was unfamiliar with the applications to the vampire facial.
So I go in, they draw about 3 vials of blood, they spin it, they come back with something that looks like grape juice in the vials. And then they take a micro needling kind of like, it almost looks like some type of like automatic toothbrush or a tattoo gun almost.
Yeah.
And then they go across your face,
they, like,
and they
pepper-
first like
pepper your
create
skin.
all these little tiny micro holes, and then they lather it with all the PRP. And then you go home, and you're a little like bruised up and stuff like that. And then a week later, like some of the lines like just like start to get reduced.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked looking at your beautiful baby eyes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They're gonna do 4 of them in total. I had to get the package. You save some money. You got like 20% off. It was a good package. So it's like for me, I'm like, dude, I'm fine getting old. If anyone's listening to this, be like, oh, they're being too vain or whatever. I'm fine with that. I don't care if I get wrinkles and all that. That said, a couple more years of like just like looking okay is like doesn't hurt anybody. It's natural. It's my own shit. You know.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. Helps with the dating life. Speaking
Helps
of
with
which,
the dating life. Yeah, modern dating, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it.
a little bit though. Tell me, what is it like on the other side?
What's it
You
like
went-
on the other
Yeah,
side?
you went to Paris.
Well, I went to Paris,
How was that?
and actually I want to give them a shout out. I stayed at...
All the women in Paris?
No, not all the women in Paris. I went to an artist's commune, effectively, or a utopian community. They might not like this description.
Den.
Well, it's an old chateau called Fatopia.
Like in that Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where that guy gets stuck in that castle, and they're all, we are all but 20 to 30-year-old women. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? And he's stuck in there. It's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
that was the hope, but it was a broader spectrum of
Yeah.
participants. And I have really been making an effort, and I think there's a religious war afoot, which is, well, there are many religious wars, right? There's like sleep training versus attachment style parenting.
Right.
People love factions and fighting.
Yes.
Another one is, and I've been thinking about writing a blog post about this, let's just call it romance versus radical planning. So when I talk about some of the more systematic ways that I'm approaching dating, what some people will say is that's so unromantic. To which I usually reply now, what does romantic mean? Walk me through what a week of taking a romantic approach would look like.
Interesting.
Usually they don't have an answer. What they mean is serendipity, luck,
Right.
et cetera.
Exactly.
And I am providing space for that, like going to Paris or outside of Paris to something like Fatopia, which was an amazing experience. But I think also if you are, let's just say, I'll think this out loud. If you're in college or if you're in a company and you're right out of college, there's a lot of natural inbuilt serendipity.
Yeah.
Or if you live in a place like Manhattan.
Yeah, a lot of people are single around your age.
Right.
You-
Exactly.
you
around
do-
your age.
Around your age. You do social meetups all the time. You don't have things to do at night. You don't have kids yet.
Exactly.
Like,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of space for serendipity. Let's just say you already have inbuilt 30, 50, 60% serendipity, where if you want to meet literally 100 plus new people a month, it's very easy. As you get older, as your friends, all due respect, beautiful face aside, age out, basically, they're not going to be making introductions to maybe women who are in the age range I would be aiming for because I would like to have a few kids biologically.
Yeah, so you're
ideally.
dipping down a little bit. this point.
Yeah, right. And
20s.
No, I mean, look, I'm sure. I mean, maybe in the 28 to 35 range,
All right.
right? Somewhere in there.
36, you'd be like, all right, maybe.
I want somebody who's
Ready.
very ready, excited to build a family, also has a good sense of their own identity, feels confident in being good at having developed skills or passions in certain areas. Like, I want them to feel very happy with what they've done, so they don't have, say, resentment later if they feel like they've given up everything as it was just getting started.
It's a great point. So you want someone that's kind of like, they've probably even established a career at this point. That's what they've chosen to do. They're like, they're confident in who they are. They're like, okay, I'm, mid-30s. I'm thinking about kids in the next couple of years, like that kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I've realized, for instance, because I've gone on a few dates with lawyers or doctors in those age ranges, they've been through so much schooling, they're just getting out of the gate and starting to get traction. So it's very hard, I think, for a woman in that position to think about having kids in the next 3 years.
Right.
Very hard.
Right.
After so much investment in their education and career and so on. It's been a learning process. I've met a lot of amazing people. I think that, frankly, if I want to really double and triple down, I just have to spend a bunch of time in a few major cities.
What's the biggest turnoff for you when you sit down on a date and somebody says something or does something? Like, what's your number one, like, this thing ain't gonna work?
There are a lot of little things, but I think most people would find these irritating, right? If someone's late repeatedly and they don't let you know until the time you're supposed to meet, that's just...
I'm a very punctual person.
That's just not being an adult, right?
Right.
And I want to be with an adult
who
is responsible. If we're going to build a family together, I need to know you have your shit together.
Interesting. Yeah,
right?
That's fair. I feel the same way. Even with like a buddy, if I'm running 5 minutes late, I'm like, hey, right around the corner, blah, blah.
Yeah, and if someone's repeatedly late, it means they probably haven't operated in higher stress situations or environments, because you get punished for that, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So that'd be one. And also, I would say that for me, I'm looking for someone who is a complement, not a duplicate, right? I'm not like Tim Ferriss with long hair is my ultimate nightmare. Like, I don't need to date that person.
Right.
No, we'd kill each other.
Yeah.
Right? So that varies person to person, but for me, that means someone, let's just say you have a spectrum, like a slider in the middle. This is my working theory. It seems to hold up. So if you had a slider in the middle, you have let's just call it perfect androgyny, and we won't stumble over the terms. If you want exact definitions, just choose your own. But let's just say it's perfect 50-50 feminine, masculine characteristics. And then as you move out in either direction, you kind of have 100% masculine, 100% feminine.
Yes.
I think
you don't
good
want 50,
matches.
Don't tell me you want 50-50. I think that's bullshit.
No, I don't want 50-50. What I've seen in couples that really, really work well is they tend to be equally distant from the center.
Oh, interesting.
And by the way, that's not a gendered thing. Like, you could have, for instance, I know couples where like the male is really playful, A, B, and C, has characteristics that might be traditionally defined as feminine. Wife is like COO, runs the ship. That's fine.
Yeah.
But they're equally distant from that center point.
Right.
And that equivalent polarity seems to work.
That is fascinating, because I've had this conversation where I find that if you are so in the center and you're like 50-50 and no one is stepping up to be either masculine or feminine in a traditional kind of like male-female role that we're talking about here, obviously there's so many other ones out there, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, either you do something or I need to do something, but it's like, what is this, like this kind of like boring middle? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think if you look at primates, you look at humans, it's like we like to know sort of where we stand, or like what we're supposed to do. What is our job? And so I think that can take a lot of different forms. Energetically, let's take gender out of it, like even within a company, right? Like if it's a pure, flat meritocracy, no job titles, if things get amorphous, it's going to be very confusing.
100%.
So I do think there's a comfort that can come that is hard to put words to with matched polarity.
Yeah.
Which again is not a gendered thing. It's more like a constellation of characteristics. Should we shift gears a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank God. Get me off the hot seat.
Yeah, I was just going to ask how the Paris dating scene was. But,
So I want to make a couple of recommendations.
yes, please. And then I got something to show
Do you know who Bobby Fingers is?
Sounds familiar.
So always a safe thing to say. I think I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Tell me more. So Bobby Fingers is one of my favorite discoveries on YouTube of the last decade. And he is one of the most unbelievably skilled artists, craftsmen, sculptor, polymaths. He's also hilarious, and his writing is incredible. He's a performer and makes the most bizarre shit you've ever seen in your life. So they're like 10 to 30 minute long descriptions of him making something beautiful and then like hiding it by burying it somewhere. And there's one of the, let's say the scene with Michael Jackson where his hair catches on fire, and it's him building this entire diorama. There's one of the Mel Gibson DUI stop from way back in the day. And I would say that if you want to see something that I think is pure genius.
So is this a video or what is this exactly?
It is, yeah, it's a video channel. So if you go to Bobby Fingers, at Bobby Fingers on YouTube, you can find him on Patreon as well, patreon.com/BobbyFingers, youtube.com/@BobbyFingers. And this guy should have, in my opinion, hundreds of millions of views.
What's he at now? Is it like big or?
I mean, for what he's doing, I think it is so hard to categorize that it hasn't had as much spread as it deserves.
195,000 followers. Still decent.
Oh, he's doing well.
Yeah.
But I really feel a moral, maybe amoral/immoral obligation to recommend people go check this out.
Oh, this looks amazing.
There will be plenty to offend everyone, but it is so genius and unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. I strongly recommend people check it out. And two of my favorites, there are many good ones, but I would say Michael Jackson or Mel Gibson are great places to start.
That's awesome. All right. I will check that out. Have you, by the way, were you doing a Ozempic in this shot or?
Oh, wow. Look at that. I'm so glad AI shaved my chest for me too. Yeah. I am looking good.
Dude, that is a legit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you were 007.
I mean, honestly, what's crazy to me about that
is how much you actually look like that.
How much, how great I look in those Speedos. But separately is the lighting.
Yeah.
It looks real. That's really
makes you want to go back to the gym.
I mean, why go to the gym when I can just put that up?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I've been training very hard recently and feeling very good. I'm not taking Ozempic, but I have been using a few different tools that I thought people might find
let's hear it.
Interesting. So one, which was recommended to me by a 2-time silver medalist in Olympic archery, Jake Kaminsky. I would also recommend people check out his channel if you want to learn anything about archery, especially recurve. He is amazing, both as a performer, proven performer, but as a teacher. So Jake Kaminsky, with a bunch of I's, Kaminsky. He recommended the Outdoorsman Atlas Trainer Frame System. So what is this? I'll tell you the problem it solves. So I own a bunch of rucking sacks.
Yes.
So these are backpacks
I ruck too,
with weights in them.
Yeah.
And there are a few issues with the sacks that I've owned to date. One is that they're usually a set weight. You can swap out these huge square plates. Secondly, they don't necessarily have a waist or kidney belt, so the weight is on your shoulders and not also shared on your hips.
Right.
And this particular system is effectively a frame hiking backpack that's very well constructed.
Right.
And it has plate loading on your back. So you can put Olympic plates on it. So any weight plates you might have in a gym or that you might buy at Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever that you could use for a barbell, you can slap onto this thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you can adjust it in amazing increments and then use progressive resistance.
Now, do you want more weight on your hips? I know for like, don't get me wrong, like obviously like long-term 50-mile hikes or whatever, we want to get the weight onto the hips. Yeah. You know, I got my DEXA scan done, which I'm sure you've done before, low radiation.
Yep.
It calculates all different types of muscle and fat types and bone density. My bone density is going down.
Yeah, me too.
One of the things that Atia told me and his staff was like rucking. Like get weight on the bones so that you can maintain that bone density.
Yep.
Why throw it on the hips? Why not leave it on the shoulders?
All right, so there are a few reasons for that. The first is, and we've talked about this a lot on this show and offline too, it's improved dramatically, but for the last 2 years, I've been plagued by incredibly painful, chronic low back pain.
You've had back issues for a long time, dude.
Especially the last 2 years. to the point where there have been moments, say a year and a half ago, where I couldn't stand or sit for more than 5 minutes.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's right. Did you were carrying around that little ball or something that you put behind your back? Wasn't there something?
Yeah, I still have that
Yeah.
for really uncomfortable seats if I have to be on, say, a plane for a few hours or something like that. Use a little Pilates ball, which you can fold up and stick in your pocket. It's actually great for lumbar support. But the point is, I am specifically training for a hunt that I have at the end of this month. I do not hunt often. The first hunt I ever did was for the 4-Hour Chef long ago. That was 2012, but I would have done it probably 2010 or 2011. And I just feel very good about sourcing ethical, clean meat with wild harvesting. And in this case, it's an elk hunt. I've done exclusively bow for probably close to 10 years now. But part of that...
Well, some of the endangered species stuff you do, though, I just can't get behind. I just, for some reason,
I know. I don't know why you sent back my snow leopard pancakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, in this case, you do it the right way. You get tags. Everything is wildlife management. But if you're going to do that, you're going to be at high altitude. You're going to be... In this case, it's called bivvy hunting. I'm going to be carrying everything. How do you have so many flies in your pristine
It's Southern California?
recording studio? In any case.
It likes you.
Yeah, I know. I love you too, fly. So you're going to be carrying basically your camp with you every day. And that's probably going to be between 9,000 and 12,000 feet above sea level. And then if you harvest an animal, you're going to be field dressing it, breaking it down into pieces, and you might be carrying an additional 50 pounds. You don't want all that on your shoulders. That would also be a very bad idea for me, not that you would do it anyway in that circumstance, to load that on my shoulders, which would place a lot of that on my lower back, which is compromised. I have some pathological issues with my low back and my SI joint. So I shift a lot of it to the hips. You are taking some of it on the shoulders.
You don't have any meat Sherpas or anything that go with you?
I think we might have 1 or 2 people who are there just to be part of the trip and might help with carrying. But you have to keep in mind, like if you take down a larger bull elk, you might have, hundreds of pounds of meat.
How do you keep that meat fresh?
There's a number of different ways you might approach it. Given the time of year and the elevation, it's going to get pretty cold. So a lot of folks first would hang the meat as they're sort of deconstructing the animal in the field and let it cool down. Then you put it into meat bags, which look like big socks, effectively. And then how they're going to actually protect that at camp or how they'll place it, et cetera, remains to be seen. I am always going out with people who are effectively professional outdoorsmen who make, I'm always the slow fat kid, always. So part of the reason I'm training my ass off is to not completely embarrass the person who invited me.
That's going to be awesome, though. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's great. So I'm doing a lot of rucking, also doing a lot of training on activating, say, glute medius, piriformis, hip internal and external rotators. And the more I do that, the less the obliques and other muscles turn on to compensate and stabilize the low back, and the less low back pain I have. So that's been another big breakthrough in terms of the low back issues. But honestly, if you do some rucking, maybe some kettlebell swings once or twice a week, some push-ups, and some core work, you're done. Like, you're really hitting everything.
Yeah, I love rucking. Rucking has been kind of my 3 to 5 days a week, 4 miles each time with elevation. And it's just like in an hour and a half, we got a new corner.
Wow.
We got
refill coming in hot.
What is this?
Okay, sorry, I know you like tequila, but
Oh, yeah, that's
I
right.
want to pause.
Yeah.
This is called Fairbanks.
Rye, apricot liqueur, and thank you.
Bitters
Edison.
and rye
Appreciate
whiskey.
it. Tim has the board of flight after
Here
this.
we
It'll be
go.
fun.
Fireball shots.
Yeah, fireball shots.
Cheers, Kevin.
Cheers.
I want to watch the action.
There we go.
Reaction shot.
This is one of his favorite drinks to make.
That's really nice.
I know you said not too sweet. I tried to
It's not too sweet.
Isn't that good?
And it has the fancy ice cubes, too.
spare it forward for sure. Too.
Yeah, spirit forward. That's in my dating bio.
Exactly. So with Paris, with the chicks, well, hold on, just tell me what they look like, because they got a good fashion sense out.
Well, part of what I was interested to see, I spent almost 8 weeks in Europe, was how does dating differ in different places
They're a
in
little
Europe?
softer out there, though. You like
No,
that?
not necessarily. Not
Really?
necessarily, no. So it varies tremendously by country, I would say. And of course, there's a huge range within each country. But say dating in France is very different from dating in Madrid, which is very different from dating in other places. It really varies tremendously. But part of what I'm hoping for is finding someone, and these women exist, but a lot of women, understandably, for a million reasons, feel very conflicted and are put in, I think, a difficult position, frankly, when thinking about career, kids, basically trying to do more than any person in history had to do like before 50 years ago.
All right, let's not go back into this.
No, I'm just saying that.
No, I know. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's very challenging. So what I want to get a real clear signal on is that somebody is excited to be a mom in the same way that I'm excited to be a dad. And that it's not, well, all my friends are getting married, I guess this is what you do.
Right.
Even though I'm going to make all these compromises and might resent it later. I don't want to subject a kid to that potential risk. Right.
That's wise of you.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for. But it's not, there isn't some Garden of Eden where you magically just walk down Whole Foods and pick up, a woman like that. But there are some significant cultural differences from place to place.
Yeah. All right. So I have a gift for you.
I have a gift. What kind of you? Oh, wow.
This is called a Fino. This is my buddy's new startup.
Okay.
And in the self-experimenting kind of crazy vein of things,
all right,
I want to show you this. Now,
Fino, F-E-N-O.
Yeah. So this is, this is a beta.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't laugh at me because remember, you're going to be doing this by yourself.
Oh,
okay.
God.
This is not like a fleshlight or anything. Okay.
What the fuck?
So this is a medically proven way to brush your entire mouth in 20 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
So
all right, that's interesting.
So watch this.
Oh, wow, you're going to try it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little of this here. You put a little foam in here.
Yeah.
And so there's this, they have this little app that custom creates a mold.
You didn't buy this from an ad on Pornhub?
No. So this is going to look a little mouth aggressive. Okay. So if you're watching the video.
Spirit forward, mouth aggressive. That's also my bio.
Exactly. So what you do is that this was created by a couple founders that, obviously one of them was a dentist, and they figured out that, compliance is really hard with people that say everyone says they floss, they don't.
Yeah.
I do, but do you floss?
Oh, like 7 times a day.
So I'm put this in my mouth, and this is going to wrap around both sides.
How are you going to rinse that?
I don't know.
All right, let's see it. It's gonna be good.
I don't know. I couldn't stop it. Okay.
Holy
I know what
shit.
you're thinking.
You definitely bought that on Pornhub.
No, I did not, but it works surprisingly well.
I'll try it.
I got one for you.
Thank you.
I got to say that I do love, it has sensors in there. I know.
I bet it does.
You're doing it by yourself, so you don't look like you're getting mouth raped every time
I can see you winking. I can see you winking.
It is aggressive, but I will say that it does a very good job cleaning.
Aggressive but effective.
Aggressive but effective. And it's 20 seconds, which is great. They have sensors that actually scan your gums and look at gum health and can send it back to your doctor.
What?
So
on that device?
On the device, built into the device.
Okay.
So that your doctor can actually see recession and like things that are happening with your gums. So it's like a very tech-forward device. It's crazy.
I had my first real surgery was when I was a kid for receding gingiva. I actually had a huge piece of my upper, well, I guess it's your only, palate removed and grafted
Holy shit.
onto my lower
what,
gums.
Like sugar and shit? Like what were you doing?
No, it's just genetic. Like my gums
crazy.
were receding when I was a kid. It was, I don't know how old I was, maybe 12, something like that. It was brutal.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
Vigorous.
Yeah, it's like a.
I'm so
It's stretch.
upset that I did not video that from this direction.
We've got it going here.
Nice.
We got that camera right there.
Oh, that's the slow-mo. We need that in slow-mo.
So
There's the intro to the episode.
Listen, hey, you know what's funny is like when I was putting together these stories for the Random Show, I'm like, I love, if you look back historically at all the years we've been doing this episode, we've had some of the most craziest, stupidest shit and talked about the dumbest stuff. I mean, we already today talked about you squirting your freaking infectious fluid at my body.
That's true.
Like we've done some weird shit. And so I always try and like to find stuff. I mean, this is like both cool.
Every once in a while, one of those things, 5 years later, look at that, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Remember, dude, I talked about Ethereum for the first time on the show before it launched.
When was that? That was, God, that was a long time ago.
Dude,
That was when I was still living in my first place in San Francisco.
I watched the clip and I'm like, oh, there's this one cryptocurrency you usually don't care about. And you're like, no, tell me. And I'm like, well, it hasn't launched yet. And you're like, what is it? I'm like, well, it's called Ethereum.
When was that? That was like 20, like it had to be
I have
like,
to go back and look.
yeah,
ChatGPT.
2014 or something. I mean, it was way back then. It was way
crazy
back
some
in
of
the
the stuff
day.
we've
I remember exactly
seen.
where we were sitting by the fireplace in my first rental in San Francisco.
That was a cool spot.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. What do you got?
My turn. I would say that I can't say too much about it. You're going to hate that. But
We never asked what your book was about, but anyway.
I can't really. So
I know you never talk about
I'll
that
talk
shit.
about a superstition that may actually have something to it. I, as well as a handful of other authors I know really well, who've written a lot of books, feel like there is such a thing as, like, let's call it mimetic release. And what I mean by that is, I think it's fairly frequently observed that you'll have some, as an example, intractable scientific problem or some scientific problem that researchers around the world are grappling with, and there's almost no apparent major progress made for years and years and years, and then within the same 2-week period, people in all these different locations suddenly make breakthroughs. What is happening there, right? And what I have observed, and again, this is getting into maybe what people would consider magical thinking, but I can't explain it. Doesn't mean there isn't an explanation. When people talk about ideas, that idea seems to suddenly pop up in a lot of other places. Now, you could make the argument that that's maybe expectancy bias, right? If you buy a Hyundai,
It's a red Hyundai.
then
all
you
see
see
is
it.
red
Then
Hyundais.
all you see is red Hyundais,
Yeah.
right? So there could be an element of that, but there seems to be more to it, which is part of the reason why I don't talk about like the key core concepts in a book before I release something. But I will say, in terms of progress, in case anybody's wondering, have probably 500 to 600 pages drafted.
Oh, shit. It's a big book.
Got a lot. Yeah, I mean, all my books are phone books. And that is going to get cut down probably. Well, actually, it's probably going to get to like 800, and then it'll get cut down to like 500 or 400.
Did you use any AI in crafting this?
I did not.
Nothing?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Will you apply that to some of the chapters?
I
and say,
might,
okay,
I might
is there a better way to
apply
say
it.
this?
I might apply it in combination with test readers, looking for gaps in the material. Basically, use AI as a critic,
Right.
and try to find gaps that would be ultimately helpful to mainstream or a larger audience of readers. I could see using it that way.
I did a really cool thing the other day where I created a custom chat GPT and I went back and I looked at every single book that Warren Buffett had ever recommended. Okay. The Intelligent Investor, like all these, right?
Yeah.
And I found the PDFs from them all there because they're like, you can just Google them, they're there.
Yeah.
And I uploaded them all to the chat GPT.
Okay.
And I said, you're my investment advisor.
Okay.
What should I do in this particular situation? And I'm asking questions of this custom saved chat GPT based on all of Buffett's favorite books. It's freaking fascinating.
You know what you
dude.
could probably also do is take all of his annual letters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. I have that. There's a book
Yeah.
about his annual letters that I uploaded into it.
The green cover.
Yeah, they're in there.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's
it's
it. And
so cool.
So what happened?
Well, I just got some insights. Like I was asking, like,
Buy low, sell high.
yeah, it turns out index funds is all it says back to me. Yeah. It's like, you idiots, stop.
Don't
Just do
outsmart
index
yourself.
funds. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's very specific questions you have around, timing of markets, or not that I didn't ask that particular question, but like, things around the markets where you're like, okay, how do you feel about our current state when we think the Fed is going to cut rates over the next 12 months. What do you think about bonds, blah, blah, blah. And it just like spits back very intelligent responses based on historic data, which I find is just like, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's really cool. Anyway, I'm excited for your book. When will it launch though? When are we talking? You're 500, 600 pages in.
I've been thinking about a few different options. One is doing it the way that I've done it in the past, which is to release it all at once as a book launch. There will definitely be some new experimental wrinkles to that, no matter what.
Traditional publisher? Because before you did Amazon once, you did...
Well, I did Amazon publishing, which at that time you could consider a traditional publisher. So in structure, it was very similar.
Right.
They just had the distribution advantage
Yeah.
of being Amazon. This time around, we'll see. I could very easily see doing ebook audio on my own or through an Amazon platform.
Interesting.
And then possibly doing a print-only deal or doing print on demand, frankly. Like the quality of print on demand has improved
It's
so
insane.
much.
Yes.
It's absolutely perfectly sufficient.
Dude, I was at Ryan Holiday's I went to his bookstore outside of Austin, which is amazing.
Painted Porch. It's a great bookstore.
He has the best bookstore.
Yeah.
What a life.
Yeah.
I love him. He's such a good dude. I went to his bookstore and
It's such a beautifully curated art project
Yes.
that is driven by him.
yes.
If you want to see sort of a new manifestation of the best of old school bookstores, visit Painted Porch.
Yeah. And it's like about a half hour to 40-minute drive outside of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
He's got cats walking around there. It's all of his favorite books. You know,
He even
he's-
has cats.
Yeah, there's even cats for the cat lovers. This thing I would say that was really cool is that he actually had his books printed like higher end versions of his books, like
Yeah.
leather bound, like super high end versions
Yeah.
that he had done that were just insane quality.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like, and those are kind of like as you need them, like kind of like
Yeah.
on demand. You know, it's
There's a bit of trivia for folks. Well, I'll give trivia on trivia. So trivia, trivia, three roads. It's actually these little tchotchkes that travelers would put down for good luck on their path at intersections of paths. So that's where trivia comes from. But separately, the Painted Porch refers to Stoicism, which comes from the Greek stoa, because early iterations of the philosophical tenets of Stoicism were taught in this open-air porched area. So that is why his bookstore is called the Painted
amazing.
Porch. Yeah.
We got 14-year-old toaster, almost 14 here, coming to visit us.
You were saying he's totally deaf, but he still
totally deaf.
still remembers me. Came
You
up,
know-
licked my face.
You know what he did? He's done courses of rapamycin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I put him on it a few years ago.
And
it seems to be working. I mean, dude, you see him? He's moving around great. He's almost 14.
I know this brings back so many memories. I mean, back way back in the day. I'm looking at Daria. Hi, Daria. I remember recording on your couch. This was back still in dig days.
Yeah.
And Toaster was a little pupper, and he was chewing on the XLR cables
Right,
and almost killed our podcast and killed himself.
Yes.
And here he is, all these years later, wagging his tail.
Yeah, I caught him like halfway through one time an actual full like voltage cable out of the wall. And it's just like, yeah, it was horrible.
So rapamycin, we've probably talked about it before, but people can check out, I'm not sure what this current status is, but the Dog Aging Project. I did a podcast with Matt Caperlin.
Yeah, University of Washington. You and I both
Supported that.
funding wise to fund that and power that study.
Yep.
Yeah. So did Peter Tia.
Yeah, totally.
So did Brian
Armstrong.
from Coinbase. Like we all kind of chipped in to see what would happen.
Really fascinating work. So people who are interested in rapamycin for potential longevity applications can take a look at that. I did an interview separately with Matt Caperlin, which I really enjoyed. What else do you have?
I have one quick update. One just for people to check out. So Original Love, Henry Shookman's new book, who is my Zen master. Got to give him a plug. He's such an awesome human.
He's a great guy.
And his app, The Way, fantastic meditation app. You and I are both investors in. I always want to give Henry some love because he's such a good soul. And
So
this book was fantastic.
You did some, so that's called Original
Love, yeah.
All right. You did some training recently, and
Yeah.
you sent me the schedule, the daily
Yes.
schedule. What did your daily schedule look like, and how long did it last?
So I went to a 5-day silent meditation retreat with his master, who is the head of the Zen sect out of Japan, flew in for this, into Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so I will tell you, when you sit with Henry and I've done a 7-day silent retreat with him in the past. If it's just Mountain Cloud Zen Center, which is his Zen center, it's probably 4 hours of sitting a day. And then there's walking meditation and a stretching thing. Like when the Zen master's there, like when the guy from Japan's there, like it's like legit. Like
Hell week.
It's hell week for meditation. So I was up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I didn't get to bed till probably released at 8:30, and I was sitting for most of the day.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I saw it in there, there's a lot of sitting meditation. I'm like, okay, that sounds uncomfortable doing that for 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
which I tried once. People who want to read about my complete
You were also doing
implosion
mushrooms at the same time.
and fasting for 6 days. Yeah, if people want to read about my self-inflicted implosion, that's in a separate interview. But the chanting before mealtime?
Yeah.
What's the story here?
In Zen, traditional monasteries and whatnot, where they have actual monks, there is a lot of, it's only 10 minutes. It's just kind of
Only.
reciting.
Try chanting for 10 minutes. Tell me it's only.
No, but it's just reciting a lot of the precepts and a lot of just.
Is it in
the
English?
beliefs
Japanese?
Yeah. Sometimes it's in Japanese, sometimes it's in English, depending on who's running it.
Do you have a little psalm book that you read
Yes.
from? Okay.
Is when it's in Japanese, 100%. Yeah. I don't even know what I'm saying. I could be like large donkey cock. Like, I don't even know. It's like
McDonald's, donkey cock, garbage bag.
Yeah, so
Triceratops.
I don't know what to say, but it's quite nice. It's just like a way to kind of like end cap a set, you know, and then move into
Must
the
feel
next thing.
so good after being totally silent.
Oh my God.
Just to like hear some voices.
I know. I went out afterwards because I was waiting for my plane to fly out, and I went to this place because Santa Fe is known for their like chilies, like their good chilies. And I had like because like, you eat vegetarian food the entire week.
I was immediately wondering how'd that go for you.
Oh, dude, I went straight to a double chili burger and a large IPA, like straight out the gate.
God.
Probably-
Actually, you sent photos.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. Yeah, to you and Saka. Yeah, that's right.
Was that disaster pants at 30,000 feet?
It was definitely like my stomach was not happy. I was paying for that. But yeah, so I do. How much time do you have? Because I know you have a flight.
I have time.
Okay.
I have
Do you want to cover? I got a really crazy one.
Let's do crazy.
Okay, crazy is
We can
that,
cut it out if you can't, but are you allowed to talk about Klotho yet?
Yeah, I mean, so Peter Attia did a fantastic episode, which we both, I would say, would highly recommend.
Yeah,
with
100%.
Dina, who is a fantastic researcher at UCSF. She has identified a compound called Klotho, which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah. So in fairness, it was identified by Japanese researchers.
Sorry,
who
my
named
bad,
it.
my bad. But she's spent a good part of her career.
She is one of the foremost experts in the world, for ssure.
Yeah, so she did an episode with Attia that was a deep dive for about an hour and a half, and it is. I mean, do you have the kind of stats in front of you? I can ballpark it if you want.
Why don't you ballpark it?
So the ballpark it, in my understanding, is that Klotho, just so people know, it's naturally produced in humans, especially under high intensity kind of interval exercise. So you get more natural level of this. We all have it in our blood right now. As you age, you get less of it. Okay, so the interesting thing in humans that they know is that people that have there's two genes, there are these genetic polymorphisms, and if you are an overproducer, if you have these SNPs where you're an overproducer, meaning you naturally produce more of this Klotho, you just get dramatically less dementia risk. And even if the very famous gene out there is the ApoE3, ApoE4 genes, whereas if you are a 4 carrier, meaning like most people are 3-3, if you're a 3-4, you're like something like 5 to 7 times more likely to get Alzheimer's. If you're a 4-4, you're kind of fucked. It's like 80% of people get Alzheimer's or something like that. If you have one of these SNPs, and you are way more likely to get it, but you're also an overproducer of Klotho, it evens out the playing field.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you don't get you have the same risk of dementia. So there is a lot of, now the crazier shit is like, forget the mouse studies. The mouse studies are all awesome. They reverse dementia and all that shit when they give them Klotho. When you give it to monkeys, even if they don't have dementia, they like instantly, this is a subcutaneous shot,
Monkey limitless.
they instantly become like 20% smarter, like for 4 weeks, instantly from just getting a little boost of Klotho.
It's going to be in the headline, Monkey limitless.
Dude, it's nuts. It's nuts. So, we're very close to finishing the deal, but at True Ventures, we're writing a very big check that I'm leading around into we're going to get this in humans in the next year and a half. You're going to participate.
I'm already committed.
Attia's going to participate.
And I can read quickly.
Yeah, please.
Just for people who want to check it out. So this is the name, I believe it's the name of the episode that Peter has on The Drive, which is his podcast. A breakthrough in Alzheimer's disease, the promising potential of Klotho for brain health, cognitive decline, and as a therapeutic tool for Alzheimer's disease. So I have Alzheimer's on both sides of my family. So this is...
But you're a 3-3 though, right?
I'm a 3-3.
Okay.
But I have been interested in tracking this for so long in terms of possible therapeutic interventions.
Yes.
That's why I studied neuroscience initially as an undergrad.
Yes.
That's why I was initially, the very first check I ever cut for supporting science was for Adam Ghazali and some of his early stuff.
That's awesome.
Way back in the day.
I've also given Adam some cash to go do some cool stuff.
Adam, check him out. He's been on the podcast as well. And the description is, I'll just give you this very quickly. So Dina Dubal is a physician, scientist, and professor of neurology at UCSF whose work focuses on mechanisms of longevity and brain resilience. In this episode, Dina delves, okay, that's the bitters talking. Dina delves into the intricacies
The Alzheimer's juice is
of
talking.
the longevity factor Klotho, its formation and distribution in the body, the factors such as stress and exercise that impacts its level, and its profound impact on cognitive function and overall brain health. I don't want to skip over the exercise.
Yes.
Because while you're waiting for this to be available as a subcutaneous or intramuscular shot, I think it should be effective subcutaneous.
That's, by the way, that's the way they've given it to monkeys. It's been, that's the way
sub-Q. It's very
yeah.
easy. Very, very, very simple. It's like using Ozempic is Ozempic sub-Q?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very simple to do, not painful. Before that is available, exercise.
Yes.
Exercise is arguably the most
out.
potent way to increase your circulating levels of Klotho.
Yes. We're very excited for this. The potential application here is huge. Obviously, could be the Ozempic for the mind. We'll see. We'll know more in a bit. And once this gets funded, excited to see where it goes. But I think this is what I love about just our ability finally at this stage in life, Tim, like you've done so much on the psychedelic research side, which has been amazing on the philanthropic side, which is like a paid, newsletter where I can have a more private community. And 100% of the proceeds from the first month are going into fund a Matt Walker sleep study in which he's identified some antioxidants that he believes can repair a bad night's sleep.
Huh. So Matt Walker, for those people who don't recognize the name, amazing, a super sweet guy, a brilliant researcher.
Yeah, I just had him on the podcast.
Who also wrote Why We Sleep,
yes.
which was a mega bestseller.
Yeah. And Matt's such a good, fantastic, like well-rounded researcher in the world.
Beautiful voice too.
Yeah, I mean his accent,
dulcet, velvet British tones, soothing.
Exactly.
He could read the Cheesecake Factory menu.
You should read your next book. He could be your...
and I would listen to it.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Like I'm very excited to I think you and I both enjoy this idea of like moonshots around, science.
Yeah. 100%.
Because it's like it's severely underfunded, and if you do get grants,
you can do a lot with very little.
A lot with very little. Yeah.
Because otherwise, this is part of why on a lot of levels I find it certainly as exciting as the startup investing.
Yeah.
Is you have these potentially sort of history-bending scientific developments or discoveries that will take years and years and years to fund through traditional grant writing and government support. And if you are able to, I know this is not pocket change, but if you're able to cut a check quickly for, say, 25, 50 grand, the check I cut for Adam way back in the day was 10 grand. That was a big check for me. You can actually make a difference.
Can I give you an example?
And you can
of this?
accelerate it quickly. Yeah, please.
So Dina, who's the principal investigator at UCSF around Klotho, I had a conversation with her and I said, hey, what's the study that you want to do right now on Klotho that would take you, a year or so to get the grants and like blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I got this one that, I want to kind of look downstream a little bit further and we can tag Klotho and see where it goes and all this stuff. And I'm like, what does that cost? And she's like, $50K. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, do you have the researchers ready to go? She's like, I could start this tomorrow. I donated some stock that were these little tiny distributions that I had received over time. Yeah. And I just donated stock to her, to UCSF. Yeah. And now she has the funding and she already started the study like a week and a half later. Yeah. And it's like, I know that's a lot of money to a lot of people. So please, like, I'm not trying to flex here on the cash side, but I'm just saying like even $1,000.
So hard.
Sometimes if you get to know these researchers or you hear about something on a Tia's podcast or your podcast where you're like, wow, that's great science being done, you can call them up. You can email them and say, hey, how can I contribute $100 here? And oftentimes it can be tax deductible depending on the organization and like.
Oh, almost always.
Yeah.
Almost always tax deductible.
Yeah.
And I will say, this doesn't have to be a super high concept, doing the greatest good for the greatest number of people motivation. It can be, but it is so exciting and gratifying to catalyze science that could, I think, without making it sound too exaggerated, change the world literally in the case of, say, a Klotho.
Oh, dude.
And the fact that you can expedite it for relatively, the cost of a car,
dude,
is nuts.
So my mom now sometimes, sadly, thinks my sister is her mom.
No,
and she has dementia, and thankfully it's not Alzheimer's. So we've been with this for about 7 years now. Yeah. And we're gonna put this in humans in a year and a half. My mom's turning 84 in a few weeks, and it's like, I don't know. There's a chance we get this in her in a couple of years, and we get some more great memories back. We get a little bit more of like, I can't guarantee what's gonna happen, but even just like a little bit more awareness would be beautiful. Beautiful. So it's like, this is what motivates me more than anything.
And we're at an age also where it's like almost every friend in our same cohort is having this experience.
Oh, 100%.
Right. At least one parent, usually both.
I'm sure there's probably 1,000 people listening right now.
Starting
to
fray at the ends.
100%.
And it's so painful to watch. I remember watching my grandparents kind of descend to the point.
Yeah.
where they didn't necessarily recognize me or my brother or anything like that. And if you could just add a few years, right, or cut down on the symptoms by 20%, it's so significant.
Yeah.
For not just their quality of life, hopefully, but also the interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
And the whole family.
The relationships is the big
constellation.
thing. When people go, they go. But just to have that like awareness of who is around you when you do go, I think is just like such a huge deal.
Yeah.
What else you got? I got some crazy ones. I got more crazy ones, but
Bring some crazy. Bring
so
the crazy.
I talked to my dead dad via a medium.
Okay. All right. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah. It was on our list of stories to talk about.
All right. Yeah. Tell me.
So my tattoo artist was out here and she was like, hey, there's this crazy shit that happened to me. And I'm like, what's up? And she's like, I tattooed this woman that was a medium and she gifted me a free session. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, was it crazy? And she's like, you have no idea. She's like, okay, a bunch of people, so cute the Toasters come and say hi to you.
Keep coming to say hi to me.
So, I'm a biggest skeptic on this shit. Like I take this as like entertainment value, right? Yeah. And so she was like, no, you don't understand. Someone, I don't want to get into her personal details, but someone that was not directly related to her, but one step removed, like of her immediate family, had been shot and killed. Oh. And this person came in and said, listen, I had been, this is not Googleable, you couldn't have found this anywhere, was like, I am the person that was shot in this particular location at this particular spot, like crazy scary, like really accurate. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and she kept going, and I'm not going to go into her personal details, but like enough to where I was like, give me the number. Like, I want to like book this $150 session, right? It's $150. And so I book it. And it's early because she's like back east. And so I get up at 7 a.m., like barely have my coffee. And there's like, she goes, oh my God. She goes, there is this person that is like beating down my door to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And she's like,
wait, this is what the medium said?
Medium said, yeah. Okay. We were on Zoom.
All right.
And I'm like, okay.
It's got to start up in
and please.
Dog Cosmetics.
Yeah, exactly. They want to pitch you. Like, it's a great pre-money valuation. They only want $1 million. Like, if the Dog Cosmetics it's going to boom. You watch. It's the next AI. I'm like, okay, I'm very Googleable. I'm aware of that, right? And like, you can find out things about my dad and stuff like that. And she's like, it's a man. He passed from some like heart tension, and my dad died of a heart stroke. And I'm like, okay, well, you can Google that, Yeah. And then she's like describing all kinds of stuff, and even including like a fight with my mom the night before, little tiny bits. So my sister did it too, and we didn't tell them we were related because my sister has a different last name.
Oh, nice.
And so with my sister, it was like, oh, he's good with numbers. He was an accountant, and he was just like saying that. He kept saying the number 3. And she's like, is there a third sibling? And I've never told anybody this, but I have a half sister that I didn't know about. That's never been on the internet. Yeah. And I was like, I started sobbing, dude, immediately. Because like, I get that it's entertainment value. Yeah. But just to feel, and what she said is, she goes, he's very proud of you. Mm. And that just hit me like, it's like, I don't care if it's real or not. Yeah. Just to hear that. And even if 2% of your body can say that might be real, you immediately break down. Yeah. And so like snot's coming out of my nose and shit over Zoom, and like there's no filter to turn that off, and like it's just like it was just very therapeutic, And I was just like, holy shit! And the amount of shit that she got right was scary.
Did she whiff on anything?
Oof, gosh. It's funny is like once you start believing it, once you're like halfway in, you don't want to ask any questions that might get them to whiff.
Disconfirm.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And so, but I gotta say, like there was a bunch of stuff where she was like, your girls, and one of them looks a lot like your dad and has that same kind of energy, and he likes to like watch them play because he thinks it's really cute how one of them is like this, and like was predicting their personalities like to the T, like absolutely perfect. Yeah. And so then I have Daria do it, my wife, and her mom comes to her, and scary accurate again. And everyone's gonna be asking for this URL. I swear, I'm not trying to like plug any like medium here and like sell medium like things, but it was insane, dude.
Dogcosmetics.com/KevKev.
Yeah, exactly. Get that coupon code. Do you have anybody that's passed away that you'd want to talk to?
Sure. If I could, right? I mean, I'm very,
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone out to the edges pretty hard in my sort of subjective experience, right? A lot of experiments, but I would say I've also watched, for instance, there's a documentary about the amazing Randy called An Honest Liar. And I've watched documentaries on mentalists. Mm-hmm. And you watch, say, performers like Darren Brown, who are
like how they can read and like lean in.
I mean, the stuff they can do is just like beyond, I shouldn't say it's beyond explanation, but it's very hard to explain. They're very convincing, right? So I'm very skeptical, but if I could somehow assure myself that I had shielded them from the potential of Googling things and figuring things out.
Right.
If I could come in blind, like maybe the appointment's made in someone else's name and then I show up.
Yeah, Tim Barris.
And then I'm like, okay, here I am. Tell me. I mean, certainly I'm game to try.
I'll pay for your session. I want you to see if this holds up for anybody else.
Yeah, I'll try it. Like, I mean, my feeling is, and this is maybe people are going to be like, wow, Tim Ferriss is wearing a tinfoil hat and we've lost him. He's out at sea, especially after my sort of like mimetic contagion comment earlier. But it's impossible to dispute that there's a lot we don't understand.
Yes, 100%.
That does not mean that these things are unexplainable. It's not invoking necessarily the supernatural per se. But there's a lot of weird shit that we can't currently explain. And so in the meantime, if we're waiting for a scientific agreement or consensus or breakthrough that is accepted, I'm happy to experiment, right? As long as you have some preparation and safeguards in advance so that you're not a mark for fooling yourself. Well,
here's really the funny thing: is she never? So out of myself, Daria, and my sister, she never asked for a rebook appointment. In fact, my sister, she had a bunch of people that came to her that she didn't recognize, and she got to my dad like a little bit later, and she's like, "Listen, I'm so sorry. This never happens. I want to give you a free session for free. Come back next time." Like, it was very weird, and there was none of that like salesy shit. You know, I'm always on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Anyway, we'll have you do
our
it.
time's up. Like cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I found your dad.
He gave me 5 of the winning lottery ticket numbers.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry, we're out of time.
Yeah, exactly. But I just, it was one of these random things that you just walk into in life and you say yes to, and it was like weirdly awesome.
I mean, look, I'll give you. This is like 2 drinks, definitely informing what I'm about to say, but in my experience, so I get, say, soft tissue treatment once a week, right? I get like massage treatment. What was that?
I said handy.
No.
What does that mean?
No dragon rolls, no happy endings. I'm saying just massage treatment. Like I have people who work on me because I've broken my body so many times. And there are certain people who have bizarre abilities that they cannot explain. Like they are just good at
like the Reiki people.
It doesn't necessarily even have to be that far afield from manual therapy. There are just some people who have very seemingly strange abilities, and they have incredible track records. And when they try to teach other people their method, it does not translate. Like their disciples are unable to do what they do. And I don't know how to explain that, but like there seems to be an extreme variance, right, between outcomes.
Right.
And there's some people who are very purely secular. They have their technique, they can explain it. And they're effectively, architects and carpenters of the human body, and they're able to do some miraculous, I shouldn't say miraculous, but like predictably effective things based on their understanding of the human body. Then there are people who just seem to operate on a different channel, and I don't know what to make of that. And any athlete who has competed for a long time or had a lot of manual therapy will have a story about someone like this.
Why do you say athlete?
Well, just because they're
flow state stuff, or like
no, because they're going to injure themselves or have more. They're just going to have more table time, than an average person, right? Like you talk to the average person on the street. I mean, by and large, like when do you have your last massage? Like never, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Whereas if somebody's a very serious athlete, they're probably getting some type of manual therapy, once every. I mean, at least once a month, right? If not once a week. If they're like an Olympic sprinter or something, they're probably getting it every day or every other day, something like that.
Can I ask you a question that you may want to cut from the podcast?
Sure.
You told me once that during one of your ayahuasca sessions that it was either someone had spoken in a different tongue that they didn't know or there was something crazy. What is the craziest Tim Ferriss supernatural thing that you've ever seen in your life?
That's a good question. I'm going to pull out the supernatural just because.
Okay, natural.
Hypernatural. I don't think these things are beyond explanation. We just lack perhaps the tools
to measure them.
Yeah, we can't currently investigate any of these phenomena in a granular enough way to make it gratifying.
Sure. Give me a couple good ones. Come on.
Yeah, I'll give you some good ones. I mean, so I have a decent amount of flight time, I guess we can call it. I have seen on a few. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe what I saw.
Okay.
And then I'm going to debunk it.
And I know you don't lie, which is what's awesome. It's like I've known you long enough to know that you're a very, very trustworthy, like legit person. You don't embellish, which I think is great.
Yeah, I try not to. So, and I also try to cross-examine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you're very skeptical, dude.
Yeah,
which I love. It's great.
Yeah, so I've seen a few people. This is first person. Speak or sing in languages that they do not speak.
Like in tongue shit where you're like, I can't understand you.
No,
like,
you can. No. They you can hear them like coherently.
And you speak a lot of languages.
Yeah, I do.
So were they ever speaking a language that you understood? Where
Yes.
you're like, no, what language?
Spanish.
Well, that's easy one. They could have watched enough. Like
No. These are people without any exposure, or
they didn't watch Dora the Explorer or anything as kids. Like they could have.
Or look, I'm not fluent in these languages, but like the Shipibo, or like from the Shipibo Kunibo people, or.
And these were like
Quichua Lamista, like
white people coming in, like where you're like you didn't have any.
They're coming in blind. They couldn't even tell you the names of these tribes.
Fuck. Like how many words? Like one or two words? Or like
no, we're talking like an hour.
What?
Yeah.
And you've seen this firsthand.
Yes. And I also have what I would consider credible witnesses, people who are hyper competent in their own lives. They have very effective careers, et cetera, et cetera. These are not people who are just like navel gazing folks who do like personal development seminars every 2 days and don't have a job. These are real operators who have seen in one instance, this woman who ended up speaking what sounded like in tongues, but there was an academic there who later was like, oh, it was something like ancient language. It was something that he could identify, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, it's a dead language." He's like, "But I've studied enough of it." He's like, "That's what she was chanting."
Is this recorded?
No. So if I were to take the debunk side of this, I would say, well, everyone's tripping balls. So let's be honest, right?
Right.
Everybody could just be making up the like never-ending story fantasy that they want to be true because they're trying to recapture some mystery in a world that seems just like profane and disgusting.
And this is all ayahuasca.
Those examples are all ayahuasca, but it's not limited to that. It seems to be particularly prevalent. Like reports, let me be clear, not occurrences, but reports of these types of events or phenomena are most widely reported, it seems, in cases of ayahuasca, but the format, I think, matters in the sense that it may not be limited to ayahuasca, which is a brew. It's a combination of different plants. So Banisteriopsis caapi in the case of the vine, and then Psychotria viridis if they're using chacruna, also another name for the same thing. So it's a bit of a cocktail, right? You can think of it as an old-fashioned. Like there are a lot of ways to put a spin on an old-fashioned. And depending on the brew, it's going to be very, very different.
I had one the other day with cognac, and it was so good.
So I can tell you what is not delicious is ayahuasca. But the point I was going to make is that I think the reports in part are more frequent with ayahuasca than, say, psilocybin or psilocybe mushrooms, let's say, or LSD, because ayahuasca is almost by default, at least in the syncretic kind of mestizo, neo-shamanic formats that you see, say, in North America and at a lot of the ayahuasca tourism places, it's inevitably in a group context, right? And so when you have a group together, the dynamic, the potential for storytelling, the volume of things that you will observe from other people is just higher than if you're laying on a mat by yourself doing mushrooms. So I think since that shared experience is such an intrinsic part of most ayahuasca circles as sort of North Americans experience it, that it's almost inevitable that you're going to get more reports of these types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe people are just hearing and seeing what they want to see, right? Like they are ultimately considered hallucinogens, although I do think there's more to the story.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I will say, like, when you're listening to anyone talk about fucking Crazy Town, which is what we're talking about right now, and this is not to say that I'm the ultimate impeccable objective witness of reality, but you just have to ask yourself, like, has this person demonstrated the ability to reason and logic their way through other complicated problems, right? Because if they haven't demonstrated that and they believe in the fucking tooth fairy and
right.
spirits and ayahuasca, then you don't have a basis for judging their judgment.
Right.
But if someone comes in and they are demonstrably world-class in a bunch of domains, a real operator, very skeptical, and nonetheless they have these experiences and they're just like, what the fuck was that?
Exactly.
Then it's more interesting.
Yeah. I had the jet Navy fighter pilot named Ryan Graves on my podcast.
Ryan Graves?
Yeah, like the Uber Ryan Graves, but the fighter pilot.
Yeah, okay.
And he's the one that came out and said, I saw some crazy alien ships in the sky.
Yeah.
And we talked an hour and a half for what it's like and when the training that he does and the sensors that they have in these jets.
Yeah.
And you're like, there is nothing, like, this guy's the most credible dude on earth. Like, he's a retired Navy fighter pilot that, like, you know, there was no, like, he wasn't like Oh,
here we go. Oh my God.
We did the corner bit.
Here we go.
What is this?
So this is.
Sent some egg whites.
So unfortunately, egg whites. I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's apricot liqueur again. Apologize.
Ooh, I like this little closed bill. It's very
yeah.
nice. Oh, Kevin.
Sorry.
Etiquette.
Please.
Must be some decorum.
Sorry.
Lemon juice, bitters, and then your world famous tequila there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. That's not the.
Oh, yeah,
That's
the
my water.
Lalo.
That's my water.
Yeah. Egg white.
Egg whites, okay.
It's healthy.
Cheers.
I mean, it's basically a protein shake.
Yeah, exactly.
So to what, Kevin?
To experimentation.
To experimentation. Oh, that's
Jesus,
outstanding.
that's probably the best one yet.
Outstanding. I'm going to be laying on.
You get on a flight, you're fine. All right, what do you have? Do you have anything else, or do you want me to go on? I got like one or two more if you want to.
Why don't you fire away? I mean, basically, here there are a few things that I can recommend, just in case
so a couple
people are
recommendations,
looking.
then I have one crazy one.
I'll make it fast. So just in case people are looking for a couple of recommendations for things that over the last few months I have found really compelling in viewing or reading, a few things. So one is Jerry Seinfeld's Duke commencement speech.
Oh yes,
Amazing.
Yeah,
just trust me, check it out.
Yes.
Then there's a very old documentary that I watched again, David Hockney, The Art of Seeing. And David Hockney is an incredibly well-known artist, perhaps Britain's best-loved living artist.
Art of Seeing,
and
okay.
The Art of Seeing really dives into, through interviews, his way of viewing the world, art, and life. It's tremendous, and you can find it on YouTube. You might be able to find it elsewhere, but it's actually surprisingly hard to find. In terms of books, after many people recommended it, and I had a hell of a time getting into it. It took 20 or 30 pages, so just suffer through the first 20 or 30 pages. It is one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. Also probably the most brutal book. It is just brutal.
Brutal in what way? Like,
Okay, so it's called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And
Get this shit on
it's
Audible,
been
or-
selected. Yeah, you can get it on Audible. I listened to it. It was actually great narration.
Okay.
Selected by The Atlantic as one of the great American novels of the past 100 years.
oh shit.
Here's an endorsement, one of the quotes from Michael Herr. I think that's how you say it, H-E-R-R. Quote, a classic American novel of regeneration through violence. McCarthy can only be compared to our greatest writers like Melville, et cetera, and this is his masterpiece. So it's brutal in the sense that it is set in the Wild West, but the Hobbesian behavior of humans and just like evil acts of brutality are just beyond
Is this going to be like a Quentin Tarantino film in like 10 years kind of thing, or 5 years?
It would be hard to make an adaptation. I think it'd be hard to sell because people would just come out of the movie theaters being like, what the fuck did I just do to myself? But the prose is so gorgeous. I mean, this is one of those books that I listened to and I was like, I should just fucking hang up my spurs and be done with writing. Like this
really?
writing is so good.
Oh, fuck.
This writing is so good. It blows. Maybe this guy's an alien. Like it doesn't seem conceivable to me that a human could produce this. It's so good.
AI.
Now, I will warn you, if you listen to the audiobook, in the beginning of chapters, they have these they're not quite random, but they're foreshadowing snippets of different phrases, and it's confusing as fuck on the audiobook.
Okay.
So when he's like, marshmallow tobacco, a man finds a dog, hat in the wind. You're like, what the fuck is happening?
That's the perfect Quentin Tarantino little slide that they put up on the screen.
They always put, exactly. So that's at the beginning of every chapter, but it's outstanding. If you want something that is shorter and also metaphorically quite beautiful, The Bear by Andrew Krivak, I think if I'm saying his name correctly, is a beautiful story of a girl and her father who live close to the land in the shadow of a lone mountain. The father teaches the girl how to fish and hunt, the secrets of the seasons and the stars. He is preparing her for an adulthood in harmony with nature, for they are the last of humankind. I'll just stop there. But it's beautiful. I finished it in a handful of days. It's very short. That's a very special book. Really, really fast.
If you're doing documentaries, I want to throw one out there. You've probably seen this, and I just watched it again for the second time. It's called The Birth of Sake.
Never seen it.
What?
No.
Oh, dude, this is a beautiful
we
story.
tasted a lot of sake in Japan.
Yeah, we went to actually one of the breweries. And took it right out of the spigot. It was amazing.
So good.
So The Birth of Sake is about a traditional handmade, there's only 1,000 of them left. There used to be 4,000 a decade ago, now it's down to 1,000 handmade.
Sounds like Japan.
And they're machines and automation and all that are taking over. And this is about, I didn't know if you knew this, but if you're actually making sake, you have to tend to it for about 6 months round the clock. And so they get together in these little tiny micro homes where they live. They leave their families and they just work on sake for 6 months. And so this covers old men, young men coming in, tradition, the handing off of reins to one generation to another, somebody dying, the whole thing. And it's beautiful. And it's this little tiny brewery called Yoshida Brewery. Okay. And so there's a great store in San Francisco. I'm sure you probably remember it, called True Sake. Remember over in
Hayes Valley?
Hayes Valley, yeah.
Yeah.
So they actually...
I bought a sake there called Hitori Musume, which means single daughter, which I to this day I've been trying to find. So good.
So they actually sell this. I found this sake. I have it upstairs. We can take a sip of it. I bought it. But it's not much. It's $50 a bottle.
Yeah.
But it's this little tiny family. The story is beautiful. It's all 4K. There's snow falling in slow motion. Highly recommend watching that documentary, The Birth of Sake. That's my go.
What else you got? I got a short one.
Okay, go.
All right. So this is a video that was sent to me by my friend Mike. You gotta watch this. It's called.
Is this some of the stuff we send each other normally?
No, no, not that horrific, mutually assured destruction known as our group
you
chat.
Can never make it out.
No. It's called Hi Ren, R-E-N, by Ren, who's a musician, storyteller, lyricist. It's fucking incredible. You've never seen anything like it. And it's a combination of talent, craziness / lunacy, philosophy, redemption, and relief. The lyrics are so good. It's a one-man performance.
All right.
Where he's playing guitar. He looks like a mental patient, he's in an inpatient outfit, gets wheeled in, and it's just him and a guitar, and he goes back and forth playing the light and dark sides of himself, having a conversation.
Oh, shit.
It is
Should we watch it now or no?
Good. It's probably too long to
I'll
watch now. You should watch it. It will blow your mind.
All right, we'll link it up. This is some good. I love when we throw out the random links that are just really good.
This one, seriously, I was like, oh, I'm not the only one who's fucking crazy.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I love that.
We're all fucking crazy.
all
Oh,
fucking
God,
crazy.
what a relief. So that's definitely one that came to mind.
All right, I've got my last story of the day, and then maybe you have one to add on top of this. So I'm taking a lot of risk here.
Oh.
In that,
Tantalizing.
speaking about podcasts that we don't want to do what everybody else is doing, one of the things that was a complete tragedy that we can all agree upon is that Matthew Perry's passing away from ketamine overdose or coming unconscious and then drowning in the pool.
Yeah.
A lot of data came out recently. Did you see that?
Yeah, I
The
did.
story? It was like really horrible. Like these doctors were conspiring to like give him as much as he wanted and like injecting him with what would be considered to be
Like a general anesthesia.
yeah,
dose.
exactly. Enough to put you out, right? And like obviously you don't want to
Doesn't
fall
mix with
asleep
water.
in the hot tub, right?
Doesn't mix with water.
Yeah. So the thing that bummed me out about that is that, we talked about this before about my treatment like 6 months ago, and I feel fantastic after that treatment. But the thing that bummed me out is that
Meaning intravenous. Was it intravenous or
I did
intramuscular?
intravenous, yeah.
It's an IV ketamine treatment.
Yeah, so I did it, I did those 6 sessions, and I was going through a really hard startup, and like I, feel as good as ever, which is great. Since then, when we did that podcast, I've had, and I can't say on camera, but I've had a household name that has built a business that is bigger than you and I have ever built. That would be a shock to the world, that hit me up and was like, I did this and it changed my life. And they've since paid for a bunch of people to do it after them that were really suffering. That person in particular was having some depression, things of that nature. That was just treatment-resistant depression was what they call it. A colleague of mine hit me up and was like, I have suicidal thoughts. I'm not going to kill myself, but I hate that I have them every day.
Yeah. Also a scary message to get.
Yeah.
Right.
But she went and did 5 treatments and is now in full remission.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing. And it kills me that, obviously there are insane dangers around recreational use. I'm not disputing that at all.
Yeah.
And it's being used in clubs. It's being used all over the place as a disassociated. And like, I get that it's really bad, but I wanted to go out and say, if I'm going to do a different podcast on this, I want to have in an expert, which I brought my doctor in. Her name is Dr. Jen. She is a Princeton-trained doctor.
Not a chiropractor.
Not a chiropractor.
No offense to chiropractors, but they tend to do the Dr. Bob, Dr. Jack, Dr. Jen thing.
Yeah, you don't want a chiropractor doing this. But she's been an ER room doctor for like 15 years.
Now I feel like a dick. I have to say. Like, there's some great chiropractors out there
great.
who I work with. But you don't want them running your ketamine clinic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And she gets into that. And she's like, this is why like we need to take this seriously, right? And so we did the whole podcast, and we take it from a very scientific point of view, talking about the neuroplasticity, talking about her outcomes that she's witnessed, blah, blah. But the crazy thing that I added on to this, and this is coming out in like a week or so, is that I actually said, okay, I will go in to demystify this. And I went into the clinic, and I did intermuscular, which is just a shot in the arm.
Yeah, it's
And
a rocket ship.
I tried to stay as conscious as I could and explain the feelings as I was starting to go into La La Land.
Are you going to share marble mouth moments?
But yeah, 100%. There's all that in there. So, but this
it is an anesthetic. Doesn't
Yes.
generally help your TED talk.
I had to stop and restart the same sentence like 5 times. But I will tell you the reason why I did this is very simply because of my friend that was suffering from severe depression, that she knew me personally, and she's like, I saw you do this and I saw it have a positive benefit, and I went to. I am not recommending anyone to do this, but there is a subset of people out there that are suffering, that are seriously contemplating like horrible things.
Yeah.
And I just want them to check it out and also see what a high quality clinic looks like.
Yeah.
Like, don't go to the chiropractor. Just look inside of.
So sorry I said that.
Yeah. No, but it's true though. Like, let's not say chiropractors, but people that have access to this compound.
Yeah.
Don't go to them. Like, you should have a real legitimate doctor. There should be a real legitimate intake. There should be blood pressure cuffs. There should be heart rate monitors. There should be all the real things that come with a legitimate practice. And so I wanted to demystify it a bit. It's going to be controversial. It's coming out soon. But, I think I'm on the right side of history here. Yeah. I think that like this will help a lot of people. It's not for everyone. But if you're really, really suffering and you tried everything else, all the exercise, all the antidepressants, and you still want to do harm, like maybe consider. You know?
For suicidal ideation, I mean, there are many resources that we could recommend.
I mean,
we're not doctors.
We're
not medical doctors. Yeah, I almost offed myself in college. So I mean, if you search some practical thoughts on suicide in my name, there will be a long post that will walk you through my history with this. But if someone's contemplating self-harm, serious self-harm, then I do think of all the interventions I have seen in clinic, that's the operative term, ketamine sessions, whether IV or intramuscular, are very interesting.
Yeah.
They effectively hit stop or pause on the thought loops so that you can have a moment of respite to really examine what is happening and going on and take a short break from your pain in the form of these thought loops that are incessant. And that is also the reason why, in my opinion, you should not use ketamine outside of a clinic.
100%.
It is too seductive. It is very easy to become addicted. If you have any history of using alcohol to take the edge off, ketamine is like alcohol times 100 in terms of its effectiveness at taking that edge off, and therein lies the danger.
Yes.
Because there are severe consequences to becoming really addicted to ketamine.
I will say this that was really interesting. I talked to Dr. Jen, who's done hundreds of patients now, right? And she goes, and I said to her on the podcast, in her defense, this was very interesting. I said, for me, like, I don't see how anyone could be addicted to this because, like, it's like a journey you go on, Yeah. And by the time I'm done with the journey, I'm like, oh my God, thank God I get like, a few days off because you do it twice a week for 3 weeks. But she goes, no, Kevin, I just want to let you know, there are some people that when they feel that, they feel a high from that.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people, thank God. But like, she's like, therein lies the danger. And I'm like, thank you for correcting me there.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real legitimate person that is like trying to set the record straight because some people can get that alcohol times 1,000 and get addicted. And then they go finding street sources and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, it's a really crazy compound because in some settings, it can be a savior and a reboot that people need and an outside perspective to look at themselves disassociated a bit, to laugh and like,
to
like,
look
take
to
the edge off.
take an observer status on their own
exactly.
stories. Yeah.
I talk about that. Actually, when they film me coming out of it, they go, what did you feel? And I go, Kevin was over here. I took an observer status of that.
Yeah.
And I was able to say, he's being crazy and he's his own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's very challenging because in some sense, like, this is a very dangerous compound, but I don't think we need to like just throw it away.
No, we don't need to demonize it. I think it's a very powerful tool, and the risk is self-administration.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
And I will say I've seen some of the most impressive, amazing, soulful, high-functioning people completely derail their lives using ketamine and other compounds. And you just have to be very, very cautious because my belief is, and I think this is even if it's inaccurate, I think it's a constructive, positive belief to hold, which is everyone has a molecule that will make them addictive. Everyone.
Yes.
You just don't know exactly which key is going to fit the lock.
Yes.
But everyone has the potential to be addicted. And and it's just the right molecule. So for me, I'm like, let's safeguard against that. Oh my God.
What is this?
This is just a single shot of that.
Oh, the great whiskey. Or the great tequila. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much.
I love that text was from like 20 minutes ago. He said, thank you. Addison, you're the best, man.
Sure.
Thanks, man.
Pickstudio.ai for Tim in Speedos. Can you put
Wait,
them?
did you already pull it up?
I pulled it up. I
Oh,
showed
so
it.
good.
Yeah.
Amazing. Crazy.
I mean, it looks just like him.
it does look just like it.
There's,
What's the story of the snake through the skull on your forearm?
it's traditional.
I like it.
There's no stories, man.
All right.
Just
There's
be
no
very
stories.
hard.
It's just beautiful. All right. You know what? I stand corrected. I like it.
Hold on. What about this one? There's no story with the.
Oh,
the
yeah.
monkey
Like
smoking
the
cigar.
monkey in the hat with the cigar.
He was in
That
the
looks
bar
pretty
one time.
traditional, too.
How about this little baby?
Oh, look at like the CCP baby with the boxing gloves. Yeah, who knows?
Addison's the best.
Thank you so much.
Did you guys talk about like just what happened last week or 2 weeks ago with like Flux and the model?
Well, I didn't mention Flux. So there was a new
All right.
model that came out.
Addison, you get to do the cheers. What should we cheers to?
To our girlfriends and our wives.
Ooh.
Who never meet.
To our girlfriends and our wives, may they never meet, is what Addison says.
Right.
All
yeah,
right.
future tense for me. But, you know, a boy can dream.
So
All right.
just to give the round out of the 30 seconds, Addison, you switched to a new model called Flux.
Yeah,
Which-
everyone knows about it. Like that's deep in the AI space.
Yeah, this is the new AI shit.
What's really crazy is so you guys brought up.
Should we get him a mic?
Yeah, here, talking to this mic. Kneel down for a sec.
Take a knee.
Just tell us about Flux because the pictures of Tim are insane. Why are they better now than they were 3 months ago?
Sure. Well,
you guys originally brought up prompt hunt like maybe 2 years ago now, or maybe a year and a half ago. It was like in December of 2020. You look good. That's not even
do.
AI. That's our trip in Mexico.
Yeah, that's just Mexico, you know?
No, so you guys brought it up, and you were making all these theories about what's going to happen with AI, and really, like, just the models just keep getting better, and the prompts are kind of still staying complicated. Yeah. And so, essentially, there was a team at Stable Diffusion or Stability AI. Those folks left and basically started another open source model. And this thing is competing with Midjourney, and it's all open source. And it launched, and that, like, the day or the couple days after it launched, everyone was saying, like, you won't be able to fine tune, you won't be able to, like, train, like, basically these LoRa's and things like that. 24 hours later, I was like, actually, you can. And
that's how rapidly it's doing.
Sounds like AI.
It's just insane, and it takes very little effort.
We'll put a bunch of these up. They're nuts.
Let me ask you a question on this.
Also, I feel like we're going to put these up, and then people are going to meet me in person and be like,
well,
what happened? You really let yourself go.
Hold on, this picture of Tim with the red Speedo type stuff. How?
Pull the AI photos up.
Exactly. Yeah, nice way to get on Tim's good side. How could you say I want him in a black jacket here, red pants?
Yeah. So
just sit on Kevin's lap if you want.
I'm not saying that's hot, but if the boner police were around, I'd demand a lawyer.
That's definitely staying in.
Shout out Hot Rod. Okay.
Just give us the quick.
What's going down over here? Jesus.
My toothbrush.
You're going to have to catch up.
Okay. Oh, God, you're kneeling on his fleshlight.
They should make adapters for this. This would be amazing.
Here you go, sir.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us how we can modify this.
The way I've seen this sort of working, like, in a way that is actually usable, which is what I keep telling people, is how many times have you taken headshots where you just need them from either LinkedIn or a show that you're working on? It's just like a really...
Dating.
I mean, I'd hate to be dating right now. That would be
bad. Me too.
But you can do anything. Really, essentially, like, what we're trying to do is figure out what kind of photos people want for...
Wait. Go to the website for a second. What's the tagline? Pro portraits created with AI.
We're APing a whole bunch of stuff, and these are actually old ones because we're sort of piloting this right now of these different portraits. So those are old versions of our portraits. Nuts. But I see it less being, hey, I want to be riding an elephant, going crazy. It's more like I used to take portraits every year with my buddy Nate Taylor, who took your portraits back in the day. And we'd have to spend like a day or two taking these photos, and like he doesn't want to do it, I don't want to do it. He's going to take 1,000 photos and maybe one looks good, and it's like, this is just going to get it right away. Yeah. So it's realistic way of getting a great portrait. I love it. But you can do whatever. Like I absolutely did that, and that's going to my library.
Your private stash.
Bookmarks, tax returns 2011.
I think I'm going to make an OnlyFans for Tim. I'm going to make an OnlyFans for Tim based solely on this AI model. I love Addison. He's the best. He's always dabbling. Like, this is a one-person startup that he did on his own. I
fucking love that, though.
Yeah, I know. It's so
cool. Dabbling is where you find things to double down on.
Yes.
Right? That's where where all the magic happens.
100%. All right. I'm out of good stories. You got anything else?
You're out of good stories. I think I've covered most of it on my list. I'll mention a few things. There's a children's book for adults.
Children's.
You're right.
You said children's.
Children's. Okay. Yeah, a children's. Children, apostrophe S. A children's.
Children's.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe it's Long Island coming out. I don't know. I think that's how you say it.
It's called the tequila coming out, but go ahead.
Oh, Lordy. Called The Well of Being by Jean-Pierre Weil, I guess, if you're going to say it in German.
All right.
And this has made an impact on me. It's a beautiful book. It's very easy to read. You could read it with your kids. And the couple who introduced me to this are one of the most thoughtful, present, and playful couples I know. F and K, thank you for all of this. And it infused, they've also infused the raising of their daughters with the ethos of this book in a way. So here's the description. The Well of Being from Jean-Pierre Weil is an illustrated inquiry into the art of happiness and what it means to be radically alive in our daily moments. I'll stop there. It's a long description.
It's out of print. I'm on Amazon right now. It's out of
print.
Is it
really?
Yeah. And so I had to just buy a used copy.
Buy a used copy. It's a beautiful book.
Okay.
And then separately, there's a question that I've been asking myself a lot, and you can find this more elaborated upon on my blog. takes 2 or 3 minutes, but don't freak out because of the first few paragraphs of the blog post. But it's a strong metaphor, and the question is, are you hunting antelope or field mice? And I've been thinking about this with the podcast as well as with respect to next projects, how I choose next projects, right? Because all we have is our energy and time. And if you spend it in one place, you can't spend it in another. And this particular question, people can look it up for the history, but are you hunting antelope or field mice is a reference to sort of the metaphor of the lion. Like a lion can survive on field mice, but it's going to ultimately be very, 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 very overbusy, and it's going to burn more calories than it earns through hunting field mice.
So be skinny.
Don't be skinny, but like pick a big...
No, it would be skinny if it was just
Oh,
doing
it would
field
be
mice.
skinny, yeah, but pick a big, audacious goal that can feed you for a long time, right? So as you're being busy, quote unquote, like, are you hunting field mice or antelope?
Can I challenge that for a second?
Challenge.
So if you're hunting field mice, I'm assuming that's easier prey, easier to get, probably gives you more time to like sit with who you are.
Watch Netflix.
Like the one thing that struck me about today, and I just like, let's have a little real talk for a second.
Oh,
at the
wow.
end.
Oh, God. Coming to Jesus
So-
moment.
no,
Here we
no,
go.
But like you went on this sabbatical,
Yeah.
and yet you had to write a book.
I didn't have to
Well,
write a book.
hold on. Our mutual friend,
Oh, boy.
who shall not be named, pointed this out as well, where it's like, can you sit and just be you, or would that be too hard?
Yeah, this is good. Let's get into the fucking chewy bits. So I routinely every year spend at least a month off the grid. Right? Like last October, I was gone. I was off the grid.
Yeah, but you were doing shit.
I was doing stuff, but here's my question, right? And this was in our shared text thread. I basically said, okay, look, so the accusation is that Tim doesn't know how to chill out. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's take that as true. If Tim were to chill out, what does that look like on a daily and weekly basis? And one of my challenges was humans are built to be social. You have a family. Our mutual friend has a family. There's an inbuilt social network in that family. I don't have that, right? So
you're a brother to me, so you always have a family.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like on a day-to-day basis, when I wake up in the morning, like, you know, my hotel room, my house is empty, right?
Yeah.
So I need to go externally. I need to travel outside of the confines of my house to find that human interaction.
Sure.
So the question is like, okay, well, if you could write the script, what would Tim Ferriss chilling out look like?
I know what that would look like.
What would it look like?
Oh, it's very simple.
All right.
I got the best answer for you ever.
Oh, boy.
No script.
That sounds like some fucking fortune cookie stuff that I can't make sense of, though. What does that mean?
I know you can't make sense of it, but that's the point. It's no script.
When have you done that?
When I did my meditation retreats, when I do, there's
No, but you had
script.
a schedule for each day.
Sure, but like I think
That was like an intensive silent
You wanna
retreat
flip
where you're
this back?
meditating
You
8
wanna flip
hours a
this back,
day.
bitch. Like, okay, I suffer from the same thing you do. I suffer from the same thing you do, and that is that we can't.
Like there's a reason we're all friends, right? We're all fucking
Well, we
border
can't-
collies
we
chewing on the couch.
we can't turn it off, you know? And it's like, honestly, I think the healthiest thing, though, would be to wake up with no agenda for a month, with no friends for a month, with the fact that you just wake up saying, what is today going to bring? And that is damn fucking hard for people that are driven like you and me are.
So I did that for almost a month last October.
But you did some psychedelics during that time and shit. Come on, you did some
Towards
shit.
the end. But in that particular case, I mean, I'll just say that I don't think humans are built for isolation. And
Agreed.
And there is a fetishizing of self-sufficiency and independence in the U.S. that I think is unhealthy. It exists in other places for sure. But if you look at our evolutionary biological, like our biological programming completely refutes that, right? To be exiled, to be excluded from the group is effectively
100%.
death, right?
And I'm not arguing that, but
Yeah.
what I'm arguing is like, what if you couldn't touch a pen or a computer for a month?
Yeah, I'd shoot arrows.
Or bow.
Or yeah. I do think, and I can't remember the particular attribution of this. Man, I wish I could really remember it. But
Ron Jeremy?
the hedgehog. No, it was someone else. But it was basically like man finds leisure through the switching from one activity to another, like one compelling activity to another, something along those lines. And I wish I had the exact quote and the attribution, but I don't. And this applies obviously cross gender, but the point being that I'm not convinced that being idle is a fruitful goal to have. If you can't sit with yourself for 5 minutes, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? But different people have different constitutions. And for me, for instance, right, if you look at the 4-hour work week, okay, so I not get rid of, but I automate my whole business, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? I end up doing tangos, like 6 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
That was not done from a position of obligation or fear. It was done from a place of like enthusiasm and excitement and love.
That's different.
And that, I think, is good medicine, right? So as long as I have the self-awareness to distinguish between something that is done from a place of fear or guilt or prestige hunger or responsibility or some nebulous obligation versus the things that enliven me, I think being active is fine as long as I land in the latter category.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for instance, like I'm doing a lot of archery right now. And I fucking love it. Like, I am so fed by it. And I'm not saying I'm the world's best. I certainly am not. But I just find it so meditative.
But can I ask you one question?
You can ask me 3 questions if you like.
Okay, so one of the things I'm really curious about is like, Tim, like I respect you so much because of how I've watched you dissect and, assimilate like information like no other human I've ever seen on earth. And you are able to learn and pick up and go deep on any topic within a matter of minutes or hours or weeks. Like you do that quite well.
Yeah, thanks.
The one thing that is the rounding out of the holistic picture of Tim that I'm curious if you can ever tap into is the Tim that says, I can just be without having to go for those things or having to engage in that type of thinking, that type of like pursuit, that type of analyzing, Daria, my wife, she's a PhD in neuroscience, and I oftentimes get engaged in intense debates with her about this where I'm just like, chill the fuck out. No, I'm just...
That's a good one.
Cut that. Daria, don't listen this far. So, but I'm just like, I'm like, I wish with all my friends balance. And I think where our mutual friend was trying to get to is like, might you find
Voldemort?
Might you find a little bit more of that side of the house? Because you have the other in spades.
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I'll sit with it. I think that balance can come in a lot of different forms, right? So the balance is time bound, right? In the sense that, is it balanced on a daily basis? Is it on a weekly basis?
Is you analyzing it though,
No,
dude.
hold on. No,
It.
it's not. It's finding the right conceptual framework through which to think about it. And I don't think that's a mistake. I think it's actually very helpful. Depends on how your mind works, right? For me, though, it's like if I'm super intense for a month and I'm going 10 out of 10 and then I'm 0 out of 10 for a month, like that equates to kind of a 5-5,
Yeah.
right? That's, for me, a certain degree of balance, but it's not, if you looked at it on the minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, it would look very lopsided.
I know a fantastic app that I would love to build for you, which would be like the Tim Tim Random app. And like you open it up every morning and it tells you what to do for a month. And it'd be like, today, it's like, what the fuck is this? And you'd be like, oh, I have to buy a slip and slide and go down it 20 times. Like, just like something where it's just like throwing you completely out of your like, and you're like, wow, I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to overanalyze it. It's just a fucking thing I'm going to do.
Well, this is part of the curse of the entrepreneur.
But it's
right?
also, but it's
no, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
You know exactly what I'm talking
dude,
about.
I know exactly
We've
what you're
talked
saying.
about this.
But also, Jesus. But also at the same time,
These are your mics.
I know these are my mics. But also at the same time, I will say that like when you introduce another partner, it's the dance that's fucking hard, right?
Yeah.
Because Daria is very much about like structure and shit where I'm just
Daria and I are very similar.
very similar.
Super
You
similar.
Yeah.
Love you, Daria.
She's you with hair.
You're the best.
Yeah, but she's,
Kevin doesn't know what he's
She has a
doing.
better body. No offense. You're-
I mean, you look at my AI
her ass is better than
speedos.
yours.
I mean, I'm sorry.
we gotta shut this off. You gotta catch a plane. Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in to the show.
Great to see you, buddy.
I love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
It's always good to hang out with you. Seriously, like I wish we could be in the same city for more than like a
fucking
day
A.
or two at
Seriously,
a time.
100% agreed. So
If we can talk Daria to moving to Austin, that would be down. Seriously.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it
right.
out. Great to see you, buddy.
All right.
All right, man.
Peace.
See you guys. And oh yeah, for all the links and whatever images of me and my speedos and all that good jazz, go to tim.blog/podcast.
Yes, and
show
check out my
notes
ketamine
and-
episode at kevinrose.com.
There we go, kevinrose.com.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Peace.
Take care.